Alright, YouTube. So this is my story of my discharge from the Navy and the circumstances that led up to it. My story takes place between November 22nd, 2008 and September 9, 2010. I shipped off to boot camp on November 22nd, and yeah, I'll admit I kind of struggled a little bit. I was on the chunkier side going in. But once I got through boot camp and I was officially in Big Navy, then, things, again, they started off great. I enlisted as an electrician's mate, and I had to force myself to basically relearn everything about math. But I did, and I got through it. And then I reported to the fleet. I graduated top grad at Basic Engineering Common Core with a fairly high GPA. For doing that, I got meritorious advancement to E4, third class petty officer, right off, well, not right off the flip, but it was retroactive, so, might as well have been right off the flip. So yeah, I was a push button, which a lot of people on my ship didn't like, but, I earned it. I just didn't earn it the hard way, but, Beck wasn't easy to begin with, so even that's debatable. I'll try to keep the commentary to a minimum moving forward. So, yeah. Graduated from Beck. Made it through combat systems school where I had to relearn math. Made it through Strand 9 Charlie where I was taught the practical side of being an electrician. And it was something that I enjoyed fairly well, working with electricity. But when I got to my ship, they started off good. I was welcomed aboard with open arms, and I impressed a lot of people on my ship. I didn't get into trouble. I didn't do a lot of stereotypical sailor things, and I stayed away from the pitfalls that most sailors would get themselves snared up in. And I have my faith, my religion to thank for that. I'm LDS, I'm Mormon. I have been basically all my life. But, because of my faith, I didn't drink. I did experiment with it for a few months, but I didn't care for it, so I quit. I did try smoking again a few short, brief months. Didn't like it. Quit very quickly. So I was willing to do things to try and have some rapport with the crew, but I would not womanize. I obeyed the law of chastity, basically, is what it is. Mormons will know what that means. For those of you who don't, I didn't go and first thing ashore, I didn't go looking for a hooker, okay? So, because of my faith and because of the values that my faith had instilled in me, I was a stand-up sailor. My chief even told me that I was being groomed to make chief in 8 years, which, unless you're one of the spec ops types, 8 years is like record time to make chief. for those of us in regular Navy. I was working on my ESWAS badge. I was getting caught up where I needed to be qualifications-wise, and I had no problem doing that. I did my maintenance tasks every week on time. I had developed a system that worked for me on what steps I needed to take at what point in the week to get my maintenance done on time. Close of business Friday. And it worked. And, you know, people knew they could come to me and like, okay, here's one story that I will deviate from. Yeoman up in the signal shack come to me. It was like, our air conditioner hadn't been working for a while. Can you figure out what's wrong with it? It might have taken me a week to figure out what was wrong with it, but it got fixed. And the problem was simple, but the location of what needed to be fixed was so obscure and so out of the way. I wouldn't be surprised if anybody had been in that compartment of the ship since the day it was built, or at least since it had last seen dry dock time. But people come to me with their problems, electrical wise, and if I knew, if I had the skill set to do it, I would have no qualms about doing it, and I would not stop until whatever the problem was resolved. I was TDY to the as an electrician's mate. I was in the engineering department as it is, but I was sent TDY over to the GSEs because they were shorthanded and they needed somebody with electrical experience. I really didn't like it, but, you know, okay, anything I can do to help the ship, right? So, I knew my rate. I did my job. I did my job well. And, you know, generally, I just kept myself out of trouble. There was one incident in Korea during my brief time of drinking, but whatever. I didn't get into any fights. I didn't cause a Liberty incident. I just got blackout drunk, and I regret it. So I'm saying this stuff because, okay, I wasn't perfect. Nobody on this planet is, but you know, I want to prove the point. I want to make the point of just the kind of sailor that I was. And the kind of petty officer that I was. I was aspiring to a 20, 30-year career in the Navy. I wanted to go all the way. I wanted to make Master Chief. Maybe not Fleet Master Chief or CMC. Definitely not MacPon. I never thought there would be a day in hell where I would see that, but I at least wanted to earn Master Chief. And I was on the fast track to do it. But the way it was explained to me, there was a group on my ship that, because I was such a straight edge, they saw me as a threat. And when people learned that at the age of 22 through 24, I was still a virgin by virtue of my faith, because Mormons aren't supposed to have sex until they're married. And that was the beginning of the end. It started with verbal things, like one electrician's mate, third class, another petty officer in the electrical shop, on a daily basis would ask me, "Strauss, did you get your dick wet yet?" "No, and why do you care?" And then the acts of hazing began. People leaving pornographic images taped to the top of my bunk after morning quarters and clamp down, which is basically where we do a quick sweep and dusting of the ship every morning. And every division sends one representative to their berthing compartments to clean the berthing while everybody else cleans that division's spaces. So, a lot of times, when it wasn't being me sent down for clamp down in berthing 2, and I was stationed on a destroyer, by the way. Those of you who are familiar with the layouts of the Arleigh Burkes will know where berthing 2 is. For the rest of you, it's pretty much irrelevant, but well, the location is, but not relevant to. It's not irrelevant to the story, but the location is. You get what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry. I was rear-ended a month ago, and there was a concussion resulting from it. And I've been having trouble focusing since, so forgive me if I sidetrack. So anyway, getting back on track here. Started with verbal stuff, sexual harassment of a verbal nature. And it started with a very small group. But after a while, others decided it would be cool to join in on the fun and pick on the new guy and haze him over something that he holds in very high regards. And certain members of engineering department would, during clamp down, would leave pornographic images taped to the overhead of my bunk. I recall one instance we were underway. There was a pair of purple women's panties on top of my pillow. And I don't even want to know where the fuck they got those from, because the only women on our ship were officers. And we were thousands of miles from anything that could be respectably called land. So, things escalated, and, okay, yeah, haha, hazing, big deal. But then it started with the grabbing and the touching in very personal areas. And nobody did a thing about it. So after a while, I had enough. Okay, I understand hazing, but let's be adults. And I went to my chain of command. And I explained to them. They're messing with my bunk during clamp down. They're making verbal remarks of an inappropriate nature. They're starting to touch me and grab me in places that I don't want to be touched or grabbed. Something needs to be done about it. So they mustered all of E-Div out, or E-Department. They mustered all of the engineering department out on the fantail and basically gave the whole department a collective ass chewing. And from there, things got even worse. I actually had one fireman in the electrical shop refuse an order, a lawful order. We were in port. We were back in Yokosuka. fireman, I'll keep his name absent for his anonymity's sake. Fireman, did you get your maintenance done yet? I'd walked into the shop. It was Friday. Everybody else had signed the maintenance board saying they got their tasks done, except him. Fireman, did you get your maintenance done yet? No. Well, it's Friday and it's 2:30 in the afternoon. EDIV won't get Liberty unless everybody's maintenance is complete. I'd like to get Liberty at a fairly reasonable time today. Can you please do your maintenance? No. Well, why not, fireman? Because I don't take orders from virgins. What the hell does that have to do with your maintenance? Whatever. I talked to Chief and Electro about it over the weekend, and they handled him Monday morning, but his maintenance was easy. As an E2, an electrician in the Navy, your maintenance comprises of, you are given a list of about 20 to 30 fuse boxes throughout the ship. There's 3 lights on the fuse boxes. There's a button. You push the button, if one of those lights on the fuse box goes out, that phase of electricity is bad. Go report it to your chain of command. Go report it to the E-shop. Electricians in the Navy, we have a habit of, we see one of these things, we'll push it just as we're walking by. Okay, I'm on the way from my berthing compartment to the mess decks. If I pass 7 of these fuse boxes, I'm going to press the button on all 7 fuse boxes, just because, you know, after a couple months, it becomes nature, second nature. But, you know, easy maintenance check, and that's all his maintenance check was. He had 2 routes, I guess you'll call them, 2 sets of fuse boxes to go check that week. He didn't want to do it. Okay, I grabbed the lists. I roved through the ship. And when I got back to the electrical shop, I saw he had signed his name for the maintenance item, even though I'm the one that did it. So I one-lined it and put my name because I'm the one that did the fucking maintenance. Totally, you know, kind of irrelevant, but kind of not. I did go off on a tangent there, but so it got to the point where where people were being insubordinate to me, you know, and I didn't mind doing mess deck cranking, even though it sucked. Didn't mind it at all. Okay, it's part of the Navy experience. Let's just grind our way through the next 3 months, get it done, and move on to being an electrician again. We were in dry dock when I did my mess deck cranking rotation, and first started out, I was promised by the base galley, because our galley was shut down, so I did my mess deck cranking at the base galley because we were in dry dock. I was promised by my lead petty officer, who was a second class, that we understand about your religion. That's not a problem. You will be able to go to church and have every Sunday off in accordance with your faith. Normally, underway on board ship, it wasn't a problem. I could stand a watch and still pray to God, and I could stand a watch and, after taking a log entry, read a quick scripture and then move on with my watch standing. Okay, fine. Not a problem. It doesn't interfere with my worship, so not a problem. But, you know, I did started off at the base galley, And after about 3 weeks, my lead petty officer there pulled me into his office and said, "Your schedule isn't working for us right now. We're going to put you on this other schedule. You're not going to be able to go to church and have Sundays off, even though I made you a promise." Okay. I was pissed, but I was willing to finish off my mess deck cranking rotation, even though, you know, people were breaking promises, and I don't know where the hell that came from. I don't really care either. But as time went on, and the hazing and the harassment and the, call them what they were, the assaults continued, and I went to my chain of command, told them I'd had enough. Well, we were with the carrier group in 2010. Normally we were destroyer squadron. We didn't attach ourselves to the carrier group. We just did little 1, 2 week, 3 week deployments here and there, but we did a lot of them. Never knew when we were going in or when we were going out. Never know how long we were going to be out for. Never knew when we were going to be back in or how long we were going to be back in for. And we didn't always get 2 days notice that we were supposed to. It could literally be, we're getting underway this evening in 6 hours, so rather than doing your maintenance, go to the NEX, get what you need for a X number day long underway period, and be back on ship before we get underway. Usually we got 2 days notice, though. But again, I digress and I apologize. So we were with the carrier group, and I think we were on our way to join the carrier group. We had to stop down in Sasebo to take on fuel and resupply. And I'm getting ready to hook up shore power, even though we're going to be in port for like 2 hours. I think it was. Not very long. There was no reason we should have hooked up to shore power, but we did. So I'm getting ready to do this, and higher ranking NCO calls me, "Strauss, put your hard hat back in the locker. Come with me." Okay. I was taken to a medical facility on Sasebo. I don't think Sasebo had a full base hospital like Yokosuka had, so clinic of some kind. And I met with a lieutenant junior grade. It was a female lieutenant junior grade. She did a psych evaluation. Out of the blue. Psych eval. Okay. I answered her questions truthfully. A lot of the questions focused around my religion and my religious beliefs, which I found very strange. I don't even know that this woman was a psychologist of any kind or a psychiatrist. I don't think she had the training to be qualified to administer a psych eval, is what I'm getting at. I don't know. I did the psych eval. I was threatened with court-martial if I didn't. A couple weeks later, we're with the carrier group. We're in Manila for a week. The day before we're supposed to leave Manila, my chief engineer, then Lieutenant Harmon, He was a lieutenant then. He for sure ranked up shortly after that, I'm sure. But my chief engineer pulls me into the engineering log room. And he says to me, let me backtrack some, okay? So we're on the way to Manila. We're with the carrier group. My chief calls me down to the electrician shop. Hands me a red paper folder. Got a piece of paper in it. Strauss, this is a discharge. A voluntary discharge. Hands me a paper blue folder. This is a court-martial packet. Somebody's accusing you of gun decking logs, and if you don't take this voluntary discharge, you're going to get court-martialed for gun decking your logs. For those of you who are not familiar, gun decking a log is basically you make a false entry. I never did that. Never in a million years. I wrote down those log entries the way I was trained to write down those log entries. And if my training was wrong, they had the fucking qualification sheets to show who signed off on it, who trained me on it. They were the problem, not me. I was doing what I was trained. Somebody who had it out for me because he got in trouble for laying hands on me in another incident, made the accusation. I know who made the accusation, but it was a convenient excuse. So, fast forward again. We're in Manila. The day before I leave the ship, Lieutenant Harmon pulls me into engineering log room. I just got off mid-watch. Not gun decking logs! Lieutenant Harmon says to me, Strauss, I know you're being discharged, and I know why, and I know it's a bunch of bullshit. But your religion and your faith has become a problem. And there's a group that wants you out of the Navy, and this is the most harmless way they could think of to get you out. They're afraid you're going to go to the Inspector Generals about what you've been through with your religion and the way the crew's been treating you. And they don't want that because once the IG gets attention on this ship, it's hell for everybody. Okay, roger that, sir. I never thought about going to the IG until Lieutenant Harmon, my chief engineer, had brought it up. And by that point, the discharge was already happening. What the fuck was the point? So the ship set sail the next morning. I didn't. I took a Liberty boat to shore. Took a bus to the airport there in Manila. Flew back to Yokosuka to do the paperwork side of my discharge. And in retrospect, I should have gone to base legal when I had the time and sought out a JAG and got help. But I was shocked. I was befuddled, and I was in shock because I remember my enlistment oath. Support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. The First Amendment to the Constitution guarantees me religious freedom. And here I am, being drummed out of the military over my religion. I was in too much shock to go to base medical and get the help that I needed, or base legal. I'm sorry. I was in too much shock to go to base legal, get a JAG, and get the help that I needed to fight it and stay in. I was told by Lieutenant Harmon that the way they were discharging me and the type of discharge that I was getting, the only VA benefits I was entitled to was a home loan and GI Bill. I wouldn't get medical care. Maybe I'm eligible to. I don't know. I haven't tried. I used my GI Bill to get my airframe power plant certificate, so I'm a certified airplane mechanic. But since then, 2010, when I got discharged, it hurts. It hurts a lot. I've been depressed ever since I got out of the Navy because of it. And I requested, as part of my discharge process finalization in KITSAP, I did request to have that assessed. They did not. I've tried to take my own life twice because of it. Because of that. There were a couple other times more recently here, but not because of what happened to me in the Navy. I can't trust the government anymore. Not after what happened in the Navy. And lately, this has been on my mind a lot. What happened? And the Holy Spirit said to me that it's time to get my story out there. Put up a video on YouTube. So that's why I'm here doing this. If I were given a chance to do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. Well, I take that back. I'd go to base legal and I would get help. That's the one thing I would change. But I would take a discharge, even a court-martial, over my faith. I would give my life for my faith. My faith is very important to me. It defines who I am. It defined who I was back then. And a small group of bad actors within the Navy saw that, saw me, and decided, yes, you're a hell of a sailor, Strauss, but you're not Navy material because you're just too good. And somebody thought I was a threat. I wasn't a golden boy. I didn't go chasing qualifications to look good. I joined the Navy to serve my country and to be an electrician. So I was going to be the best goddamn electrician that the taxpayers could get for their money. I met a woman in Japan. I didn't care she was a single mother. I loved her. I was 6 months away from taking the E5 exam. And back then, in Yokosuka, in Japan, if you made E5, you had to move off base and get housing, but you got the cost of living allowance, you got the housing allowance, you got all that to cover that. I was going to ask her to move in with me, and I was going to ask her to marry me. And that's my story. I don't know why the Spirit prompted me to get this story out there. I don't know that anything will come of it. Maybe somebody will point me in the right direction. Maybe some attorney will find this video somehow and help me to fight this, assuming that statute of limitations hasn't run out. Maybe those bad actors will find this video and they'll realize just how thoroughly my life was destroyed and what a shit show it's been since then. I don't know. I don't know why I'm being prompted to make this video. But I am. Whatever comes of it, if anything, maybe it'll be a blessing. I hope it'll be a blessing. And the whole thing, I've considered it. I've considered going to an attorney and trying to take the Navy to task over what a group of shipmates did to me and their conspiracy against me. I don't know any other word that fits. But the problem has always been that it all hinges on the testimony of one man, Lieutenant Harmon. And he's human. I can't count on him. I don't know that Lieutenant Harmon will stand up and do the right thing and say, yes, I told Strauss that. That's what happened. Here's what I knew. Here's when I knew it. Here's the people that I knew were involved. I don't know if he'll do that. So I haven't gone after the Navy for it. Lieutenant Harmon, if this video somehow finds its way to you, I call upon you to do the right thing. Back me up. Back up what you told me in engineering log room all those years ago. So that's my story, YouTube. Sorry for wasting your time. It's 40 minutes you guys will never get back. Good night.